Alright, good everyone. Welcome to today's class with biology class with Mr. Francis. Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic for today. A topic that concerns every one of us. We're looking at food production and storage. Looking at food production and storage. So in this topic, we're going to look at how food are produced and how we can store our food for future use. So let's dive in if you're ready. We're going to look at the introduction. We're going to look at the role of government in agricultural food production. We're also going to talk about environmental factors required for food production. Talk about ways of improving food or crop production rather. Talk about effects of food shortage on population. We're looking at method of food preservation. Also discuss effects of food storage over population. And also by this end of the video, we have to know all these points that are given so you can give back to the teacher as you have been taught. Let's dive in if you're ready. Let's start with introduction. Now, food production depends on the following. For food to be produced, it depends on the following. Number one, depends on the role of the government. It depends on the environmental factors required for food production. It also depends on ways of improving crop production. So food production depends on the following, which is the role of the government in agricultural production, the environmental factors required for food production, and ways of improving food production. Let's move on to the next slide. The first factor we said was the role of government in agricultural production. Cultural production. Now, the government have an important role to play when it comes to food production. Number one is the provision of agrochemicals. Agrochemicals, they are chemicals used in agric. They are used to either to enhance the crop or to kill pests that are disturbing the crops. So they can be fertilizers, they can be pesticide, they can be fungicide, and so on and so forth, and so on and so on. So if the chemicals we use there in agriculture to either enhance the agricultural products, we call them what? Agrochemicals. So they're those chemicals used in the agricultural sector. Number two roles of the government is provision of financial assistance to farmers. Provision of financial assistance to farmers. Number three is provision of high quality planting materials. High quality planting materials, that is seeds that are used by the farmers. These are the roles of the government in agricultural production. We also have provision of tractors and other implements which will lead to the use, or which will lead to what we call mechanized farming. So the role of the government to provide tractors and other farming implements to farmers to enhance the planting method. Number five is provision of extension services. Provision of extension services. These are services that are provided to farmers to teach them new ways of planting, teach them modern ways of planting. So it's an educational extension for farmers, which is provided by the government. Number six is establishment of river basin authorities. Establishment of river basin authorities. It is the role of the government to set up authorities and rules and regulation on how to preserve our rivers so that we can have more produce from our rivers. Number seven is provision of storage and processing facilities. Provision of storage and processing facilities. Number eight is provision of effective transportation network. It is the role of the government to provide an effective network for transportation of the produce from the farm down to where it is needed. Good roads and good ways. Number 9 is efficient quarantine measures. It is the role of the government to provide quarantine measures whereby you isolate some products so as it will not affect the production of the farm produce. You provide quarantine measures. Number 10 is provision of research work. It is the role of the government to provide these facilities so that researches can be made on how to plant crops in a better way, how to discover new varieties of plants so as to boost the agricultural sectors. These are all the roles of the government when it comes to food production or when it comes to food storage. Next, we have the environmental factors which are required for food production. Now, number 1, the environmental factors, they include biotic and abiotic factors. The environment is very important for food production. If the environment is favorable, the food production will increase. But if it's the other way around, it may affect the production of food. Now, the abiotic factors include the non-living parts or the non-living sector or factors of our environment, and they include rainfall, temperature, wind, sunlight, relative humidity, which is the amount of water in the air, solar radiation, edaphic factors such as soil pH, soil texture, and soil structure. These are the abiotic factors in environments that affects food production, while the biotic factors are the living factors of the environment, the living part of the ecosystem. They include soil organisms, pests, parasites, diseases, weeds, predators. So these are the factors from the environment that affect food production. And last method or last ways which affect production is ways of improving food production. Now, food production can be improved by number 1, crop improvement method. Number 2 is proper timing of plants. That's one way to improve food production. Number 3 is adoption of better cultivation method. By practicing new method on how to improve food. Number 4 is control of weeds. Number 5 is use of good crop varieties. Crops that can withstand diseases and pests. Number 6 is use of resistant varieties. Number 7 is use of manures, fertilizers. The manure is organic, which is natural. Fertilizers are laboratory made chemicals that are used to enhance plants. Number 8 is the control of pests of crops. Number 9 is the control of diseases of crops. These are the ways of improving food production. Let's look at effect of food shortage on population. What is the effect of food shortage on population size? How does food shortage affect the size of a population? Number 1, it leads to high cost of food. When there's food shortage, the cost of food goes up, and in turn, this makes food unavailable to the common man. Number 2, there will be competition. In a situation in which organisms in the population struggle for little or limited available essential resources of life, such as food, that this results in the survival of the fittest. You see, those that are the fittest that can survive in such population. The weak might die off when there is competition for little resources. Number 3 is cannibalism. A situation whereby there is food shortage in the population, where there's not enough food, the animals begin to feed on one another. They begin to eat their fellow type. Number 4 is emigration. When there is food shortage, it leads to the outward movement of organisms from a particular population. When there is food shortage, animals begin to move from that particular environment and thereby reducing the population. Number 5 is increased death rate, which is also called as mortality. When the case is so worse, if organisms could not survive and if they could not migrate, some can die, and it will lead to increase in death rates. Let's look at method of food preservation. What are the various ways we can preserve our food so that they can last longer even out of season? The first method is salting. Now, when we look at the method and principles of food preserving or preserving food, first one is salting. What is salting? This involves coating the food with a chemical which we call table salt, or we call it common salt, or in the lab is called sodium chloride, and the symbol is NaCl, sodium chloride. Now, what is the principle behind this? How does this work? How does this preserve the food? That is the principle we're talking about. Now, the way this salt preserves the food is that the salt on the surface of the food dehydrates it. When the salt is placed on the surface of the food, it removes water from the food, which we also know as dehydrates. And this form a very highly concentrated solution which has osmotic pressure, all right, than the cytoplasm of the microorganism that causes decay. So the concentration of the solution in the food and that of the organism that is causing decay, there's a difference in their cytoplasm, and the salt stops the growth, or it inhibits the growth of microbes or kill them. Now, this method of food preservation can be used for fresh meat or fish. Back in those days, our grandparents used this to preserve their fish and their meats, and we see that this thing lasts longer. So when this food are deep into salt, the microorganisms cannot be able to cause decay to such food. As you can see in this diagram, this man is digging and dipping this meat into salt, and he's going to wrap it and keep it for some time. This meat is going to last for a long time because microorganisms will not be able to penetrate into this meat due to the chemical content of the salt. Number 2 we have is drying. Now, foods such as vegetables, maize, cassava, fish, meats can be preserved by drying under the sun, or you can dry them using a dryer. Now, what's the principle behind this? When you dry food, drying reduces water content of the food. I know if the food has water content, it will enable the microorganisms to be able to thrive and destroy the food or decay the food. So once the water is being reduced when drying, it makes it unsuitable for the microorganism to grow, and thereby makes the food to preserve and last longer. So it increases the osmotic concentration of the food, which will discourage the microorganism to thrive in such food. Number 3 is smoking. Another way to preserve your food is smoking. Now, we all know how to smoke our food. Now, smoking involves placing the food over naked fire to dry it. Now, food preserved this way include meat, fish, groundnuts, plantain, and so on and so forth. What's the principle behind this? Now, the smoke creates an oxygen deficient environment. The smoke takes out the oxygen from the food, and this microorganism needs oxygen to survive, to decay the food. So the smoke shrinks the oxygen, and since the microorganism cannot see the oxygen to survive to decay the food, the microorganism thereby dies. And the smoke contains chemicals that are poisonous to the microorganisms. This is why we smoke our food. The next one we look at is refrigeration. slash freezing. Now this involves keeping the food in the refrigerator or freezer at low temperature. Now it's a particular temperature the organism cannot be able to operate. Now when temperature is low, 0 degree and minus 0 degree, the organism cannot be able to operate in such a very low temperature. And we use this kind of preservation for our food such as fruits, vegetables, milk, bread, fish, meat, and so on and so forth. Now the principle in here is that the low temperature reduces the metabolic rate of microbes. Since the temperature is low, the organism cannot be able to perform its decaying activity, and sometimes it can kill the microorganism at that particular temperature. Next one we have is the pasteurization. The pasteurization, this is the heating of some food products to a very high temperature of about 72 degree. You heat the food to a very high temperature to about 72 degree for about 10 minutes, and it immediate cooling down for the purpose of what? Storage. So it heats the food to a particular high temperature before they are stored. What is the principle behind this? The high temperature kills the spoilage microbes, that is organism that causes decay. It kills it before the food are being stored. And we can use this method for milk, cheese, beef, so that they can last longer. And pasteurization usually occurs. We can pasteurize our food before canning our food or before bottling our food. So most of the food we buy in sachet, the canned milk and others, they pass through pasteurization before they are put into such containers or package. Next thing we have is the canning and bottling. Canning and bottling. This is the storage of or sealing of produce and consuming food in cans or bottle under special condition for future consumption. So when we can our food using can and bottling, we do that for and they do that under a special condition so the food can be used for future purposes. And food that are preserved in this way, they include fruits, meats, fish, and beans. Now the microbes are gradually killed and entrance of new ones is prevented in a long storage, and its long storage is what is ensured. So when we preserve our food in cans like this, the microbes are killed and also the entrance of new microbes are prevented, which now lead us to long storage of the food, as you can see right there in the diagram. Next we have is the irradiation. Now the irradiation, this is the subjection of some food such as milk, canned food, tubers, fruit juice, so on and so forth, to a high irradiation. I will use a particular ray called ultraviolet ray. This ultraviolet ray will pass through this food. As it's passing through this food, it's going to kill every bacteria that is hiding inside that food and prevent new ones from what? From entering. So this is used to preserve food that are stored also in the can and in the bottle. Next we have is the use of chemicals. This is the addition of harmless chemicals to food to preserve them, e.g. soft drinks and vegetables are all chemicalized. We use harmless chemicals to preserve this food so that they can last longer. And the principle there is that the chemicals shock the spoilage organism in the food, and it also dehydrates or toxicates or poison the microbes in the food, making the food to last longer. Let's look at effect of food storage on population. What are the effects of food storage on population? Number one is prevention of hunger and famine. When we preserve when we store our food, it can prevent hunger and famine. All right. Number two is maintenance of stable price. When we store our food properly, the price will not be wavering, it will be stable. So it maintenance of stable prices of what? Of food. Number three is It reduces the effect of natural disaster such as flood, earthquake, pest attack, and even war. All right, so food always stored will be able to feed the people during war, during starvation, or during scarcity of food. So when we store our food and we have effects like disasters and flood, instead of us going to famine and problem, we just go to the food that is stored and we used to feed the population to prevent starvation. Then number four, food storage provides employment for workers, especially food processing companies. We've come to the end of the class for today. Here are some questions you can answer. Number one is, what are the effects of food storage on population? Are light ways of improving food production? Mention four abiotic factors that affect food production. List the edaphic factors that affect food production. What is pasteurization? These are all what we're going to be answering in this particular class. So we have looked at this particular topic, and you can reverse the video, go through them, read them through, and answer the questions that are given. I remember Mr. Francis. Bye for now, and do have a great day. Thank you.